people out there that don't know who you are, explain to them exactly who you are and what you do.
Well, that's easy. I'm your mother.
Ah, very good.
I'm Marsha Martelli. I'm the CEO of Martelli Enterprises. We started the company probably a little over 20 years now, and we say Martelli Enterprises because there are many Martellis in this business. We have my husband, your dad, you, Valerie, my daughter, who I'm sure people have seen from time to time at trade shows or talk to them on the phone. We have granddaughters. We have sons-in-laws. I had to think about that one. And family members' families. So we have a good-sized business, but with a lot of family members in it. Plus, we have a lot of people that work for us that aren't family, but after 2 or 3 years, they become family. We have some of my children's friends working for us, so they went to school with them. So it's just
A lot of moving parts.
a lot of moving parts, and it's just a big group of us. So I'm not anything special in the company.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that because later on in the interview, while people get to know you, or as people get to know you, we're going to mention the family dynamics and what type of role that plays within the company. So that was a great point that you brought up, but we'll get to that. Can you explain to us a little bit how Martelli Enterprises came into existence in the first place?
It's a long story. We don't have the time here, so I'll try to, make it as short as possible. But probably about 20 years ago, when my husband, your dad, John Martelli, and I owned a printing company. And back then we were, and I think many years, we were entrepreneurs. I mean,
Always have been.
Always started businesses, always like a challenge of a business, always see how we could make a business better. We invented products for that printing company because we just wanted to make our life easier. So if we can make it easier inventing something, then we did. So one day my mother, who is
Graham T.
Graham T., who is actually 92, but she wasn't then. 20 years ago, she was in her 70s, but she came to us.
It still looks good on my dad.
She does. Oh, I should look so great.
I know.
What?
I said, I hope I aged that well. That's all I'm saying.
I hear
she
you.
holds her age extremely well.
She does. I'm very proud of her. Anyway, she's very, very talented. Always has been talented. Even when I was a little kid, she was making clothes for us and
back then, was that a necessity,
stuffed animals.
right?
Not
Necessity?
Well, yes and no. But she loved it. And she made hats. I mean, just went into a lot of different fields. Well, one day she came to us because I guess for the first time she was making a quilt. And she came to your dad and said, John, you see these little round razor blades that they put in cutters that we never heard about before? They cost a lot of money. At that time, 20 years ago, I think they were $5 a piece.
Yeah.
She said, what can you do? I know you invent things for your printing business. What can you do for these little round blades that sharpen them so I don't have to go out and spend so much money every time to buy a blade? So I'm not kidding. Your dad went in. 15 minutes later, he came out with something, and you're too young to understand this, but I'm sure many of the...
I do vaguely remember this.
But I'm talking about something that's called Rube Goldberg.
No.
He was an inventor, and he made contraptions that worked, but they were ugly, and I mean but it worked.
Only useful to the owner.
Exactly. So he came out with a thing that sharpened these round razor blades, and it worked great. It wasn't polished up or anything, nothing you would consider selling at all. But Graham took it and she tried it and she says, wow, these things really, really work. Hey, John, let's go and sell these. And he said, and I'll never forget it, Graham, I don't know anybody that sews, and I don't know anybody that knows anybody that sews. So she says, well, I'll be back. So she came back about a week or two later, and she says, how do 16 million quilters sound? And from that point on,
Horse of a different color then.
horse of a different color. And that was 20 years ago. Of course, we know that it's kind of doubled.
Yeah.
But back then, it was like, we thought just grandmothers and, make quilts out of necessity,
At that time,
out of old clothes, torn, ripped clothes.
Out of that time, what we considered quilting, and please forgive us now, but it was nothing more than a blanket.
Right.
And 2 years later to see so much more than a blanket.
Some were heirlooms because when you took the quilt, you said, this was your great-grandmother's dress.
Yeah.
This was her other dress. I mean, so they never wasted any material. And so you passed it down because it meant something.
Yeah.
It wasn't so much about the colors.
Well, and there's still some of that going on today, but it's so much more. It's like an art form.
Definitely.
We've come to figure out.
Definitely.
Over the years.
I've gone to some of these trade shows and just looked at these quilts and just can't believe they're doing it out of fabric.
It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. They're like pictures.
Yeah, they are.
Okay, well, we appreciate that. And so let's talk about the early years of Martelli's. When Martelli first started off, I'm talking about the extreme very beginning, the very early years. How many employees did you have? And kind of, if there's not a whole lot to it, which I was there, so I don't remember there being a whole lot to it, name some of the people that were part of Martelli's and, a little bit of their job responsibilities.
Well, as you know, before Martelli, I was in business with my mother and my sister. Mm-hmm. And we had a company called Tri-Sharp. And Tri-Sharp goes back to we had a product that sharpened the razor blades. Mm-hmm. And, of course, being inventors, when we go to trade shows, we'd just be able to look and see, wow, some of the ways the women were doing things seemed very hard. And we thought there must be a simpler, easier, faster, more cost-effective way of doing these things. And so our eyes were open, and because Dad was the inventor.
And not being in the industry.
And my mom and sister had other avenues that they were going down. Mm-hmm. We thought, well, let's start Martelli Enterprises and come up with some of these other products that women could use that would be beneficial, that would change their life. Innovative.
Best way to describe it.
Like I said, we're entrepreneurs, and
it's in the Martelli blood.
It's in our blood, and that's what gives us satisfaction. When we bring out something and somebody's using it, we see it, and they come up and say, I can't thank you enough. I don't know how many times I've heard that about our cutter. From 92-year-old women saying, my doctor said I can't cut.
I had a testimonial the other day, matter of fact.
Yeah, I can't cut, but now with your product, you're giving me new life. You're giving me my life back. Yeah. And to sewers and quilters and avid quilters, that is their life.
Oh yeah,
it's no longer a hobby. It becomes it's a peace of mind. It's joy,
and it helps so many different people, which gives them satisfaction.
Right, it becomes their way of giving to the community.
Absolutely, sure does. Now, the second part of that question, we really didn't touch on a whole lot. Who was involved with when I say early, I'm talking about the very early years of Martelli. Who was involved, if you can remember the people back then, and name some of their job responsibilities that they had at the time?
Well, after Tri-Sharp, when we went to Martelli, I think we had your father, me, I think you, Valerie, and I believe Tracy was very early on. Tracy's one of our employees. That's right. And Scott. Both your friends.
Yes.
Right?
Pretty much.
And Tracy was more in helping to put product together.
Coordinate, I believe.
And Scott was our first salesman that was dynamic.
Yes.
From the first show that we took him to, who would ever think that guys would be able to know and sell women that have been sewing for all their lives? Mm-hmm. But I think the good looks wasn't bad. I think that helped a lot. But believe it or not, the knowledge that you picked up really quick and were able to tell why this tool would help them.
I think it was a combination of understanding the mechanics And what some of these women and men in the industry had been told for so long, for example, if you want accuracy, you have to have a see-through ruler.
Right.
When we found out that, well, when you use a see-through ruler, it slides all over the place.
Right.
So in reality, that accuracy becomes more inaccurate because your cuts are much harder to do with that ruler sliding.
Exactly.
So I think it was a combination of understanding the mechanics and being able to help these ladies and gentlemen in the industry understand that, you know, the mechanics have a lot to do with the cutting industry.
And that's a good point, because, you know, in any field, you have to be educated.
Yes.
And just saying something one time doesn't do it. You really do have to show, and then finally they catch on.
They catch on.
I remember with the cutter being ergonomic like it
Oh,
was
man.
so shaped different than any other cutter
So
out there.
revolutionary. We had conversations that people didn't understand, but here, and we're going to touch on another question later about this, which is really neat, and I'll tell you when we get there. But to have such a unique product and shaped so differently, when we first brought it onto the scene, onto the quilting scene, we got a lot of backlash. And how do you know? And blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And now, you know, years later, the people that are using this, like you said, we have testimonies where we've given some of their lives back to them.
Exactly.
So they can continue to do what they love to do so very much.
And
So,
the thing about inventing, you don't invent something just to invent something.
no.
Usually there's a need and a problem that you have to overcome, and that's where the cutter came in. I mean, the easiness on your wrist, your shoulder aching, and using this cutter, even the doctors in
Minnesota, Salt Lake City.
Salt Lake City were bragging, but this really helps women. If you can cut naturally, you can cut longer.
Yeah, and it eliminates all the aches and pains that you traditionally get from the traditional rotary cutting system.
Right.
Which brings me, this is a great point, which brings me on to my next question. How did Martelli Enterprises come up with some of the products that they've come up with? Did they just pull it out of thin air? Or, I mean, I know the answer to this, but for those that don't understand Martelli or know Martelli or even understand how Martelli came into existence, how did Martelli come up with some of these unique products?
You know, I think it's a combination of a lot of things. One is a combination of, I was on the road for a long time, and I could observe, and I could see what people were doing, and my mind would be, you know, just reeling to think, boy, what can we do to help that person out? The second thing is, sometimes we didn't have to do anything. Customers would come to us, and they would say, hey, we have this problem.
Can you do this?
Can you do this? Can you do that? So I think quilting is a community.
Yeah, yes, most definitely.
And you gotta listen. You gotta observe. And with the combination of that, I think it really.
So a good way to probably say this, as far as in our eyes, necessity was the mother of all inventions. We saw what was necessary for them to be able to do what they wanted to do, and they saw it as a problem. And being inside the industry, they couldn't get out of the glass, the box that they're in.
It's kind of like and I was just asking somebody, what was that expression where you can't see the trees through the forest?
Yeah.
You have to be out and look, because my grandmother did it this way. My mother did it this way.
And I'm going to do it this way.
My kids have done it this way. And that's the way it is. We say, no, there's an easier way.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, and then it takes time you just can't throw it out there. You got to ease
right.
it.
And then once they do it and love it, then it almost becomes like, look what I discovered.
Oh, yeah.
You know, so.
You got to ease it into this.
And then that person that was a skeptic, all of a sudden becomes your best advocate. They're going all around, look what I did. Look at, I can cut through 15 layers.
Yeah.
No problem.
Yeah. And that's a big advantage when you actually get your customer base to feed in and buy into what it is that you're doing. Then they come up to you and say, okay, this is another problem. You know, what can we do to fix this? And then they're a part of the solution.
Right.
And then it really gets out there in the quilting community.
Well, then the neat thing about it is when we first started 20 years ago at these trade shows, we didn't have a name.
Not at all.
And
I remember those days.
So we had to prove ourselves, which is all right.
Yeah.
You know, you want to prove yourself. But now with the products that we've come out,
what's new?
It's what's new.
What's new.
And you know, that's very
gratifying.
Heartwarming.
I agree with that. So what is your favorite thing that you love? If you had to pick one thing that you absolutely love about this company, Marsha Martelli, what does Marsha Martelli love about Martelli Enterprises?
I love research and development. I love to discover things. I love to maybe find something's out there even and find a new application for it.
Yeah.
It's almost like hunting for silver.
Yeah.
So it's new and refreshing every day. You just come in, you get excited about something, and my problem I have is we can't move as fast as we'd like to move sometimes. That's the downside of it. But the upside is, boy, if you could just blink and get everything that you were thinking.
Yeah. And sometimes if you get going too fast, that's a detriment too. So, you've got to do everything with the pace. So getting back to Marsha Martelli, and of course I know a lot of these answers, but a lot of people don't. What do you feel is your personal greatest accomplishment inside this company? Marsha Martelli's greatest accomplishment, not anybody else's. You're on camera, so be careful.
That really is a hard one. My husband's a genius, and we keep him humble, believe me. But I have come up with a couple of ideas that I'm really proud of. I think the Lord's probably given it to me because I don't think I could be that smart. But the tables that you see at the trade shows and things that go up and down, it's ergonomic. That was my idea.
I remember the conversation to the day. It was actually on the way to Houston years ago. Years ago. And I think I even fought you a little bit on it, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I had the idea before I could get anybody to make it 2 or 3 years. I was talking about, couldn't get anybody to do it. I don't know if they didn't have any faith in it selling, or if they didn't have any, I don't know what the deal was.
I don't think it was the faith thing, if I can interject. I think it was more along the lines that we had so much going on at the time. Where did we want to spend and focus our efforts? Because at that time, we still had a lot of new products out. Had we known then, of course, what we know now and how great it is for the quilters and how the ergonomics have stopped so many of the aches and pains, I think we would have put everything else on hold at that time and gone strictly to the workstations.
Well, the thing about it is you never know. You never know what's going to go and what's not. You take risks.
Everything's a chance.
And that's where the entrepreneurship comes in. You put your money where your mouth is and hope and pray that it's gonna go. Mm-hmm. But that was a thing that I would walk around trade shows and see everybody cutting different levels, and you just know.
Hurt your back watching.
When I demoed the cutter, it hurt my back.
Yeah,
because it was just
concrete.
So I just felt it was something that would be very, very helpful to people, and then also the leaders for the long arm. Yeah, the magnetic leaders. Which, I don't know how many we've sold. Probably not as many as I'd like to see out there because I don't know how many people know about it.
Well, you typically, in a company, you sell what you focus on.
There's
so many new products, it's hard to focus on it. Yeah. But yes, that was a genius idea. I thought it was fantastic.
But again, I like to discover, I like to research, but I'm also in the background doing, making sure the company's running.
So, what did you see what direction do you see Martelli Enterprises moving? For example, do you see your online moving forward? Do you see the storefront? What direction do you see Martelli Enterprises moving? And it might be a multifaceted question or multi-layered answer. So,
I think I've always been like 10 years ahead of what we've done and what we could accomplish. And then sometimes because we haven't done it, it's like Johnny come lately and other people are doing it.
We've had a few things like that.
But I've always wanted to have a talk show where they can get to know our company, get to know the people in our company. We can interview outside people that have unique gifts and can share with the quilting community. So I always wanted to do that, and that's why I guess we can't look around, but we built a video room.
Yes.
So I'm really, really excited about this to see how this is going to go.
Yeah, we've done an introduction on that, and we just put that out on Facebook. So
okay,
we're moving forward with that for sure.
So it's a dream come true. I'm getting up in age, so I don't know if I'll ever see the fruition. I hope not. I hope it grows and becomes really, really big. Of course, I think that you've had such talent. You've had the great privilege of being on things like QVC and going to trade shows and going to guild shows, and that's a gift just to be able to get up there and talk. And
unique
And of course, you
experience.
could sell ice cream to Eskimos, so
Well, I don't know about that, but I do know that the products are really that good. It makes for an easy sale when you actually say a product can do something and it can really do it.
Yeah.
So selling ice cream to an Eskimo or whatever, however you just said, is not what I would take away from it. Now, if I introduced another product that's out there in the market that doesn't work and I would sell a lot of that, then I would agree with you. But these products really are and truly are phenomenal.
Well, we really hope and pray they are as helpful as we think they are for the customer.
Judging by the reviews and some of the emails that we get, some of these has been life changing. Literally,
I know it. And then I don't know what the question was because I've gone off track.
That's
but
right.
you know,
you answered it. You answered it really well. Give me one of your favorite memories of the company, and possibly maybe the family with inside the company. Do you have any one memory that sticks out to you building this thing?
I do. Probably was it 2004? We had a hurricane here, if you remember, with Ivan, and it was devastating for us.
Yes.
And I got a call from John, your dad, saying that he went down to where we had our store, and he said it was completely destroyed. And I was like beside myself. These were the beginning years. I think we were about 4 or 5 years old.
Yeah.
Had a big warehouse full of product and things in store. And so I remember going to that building and picking up little razor blades, and just my heart was broken because all our product, what were we going to do when you're small and little like that? Everything's so critical. But fortunately, we knew that we were growing. So a month before the hurricane, we had purchased a big building. Mm-hmm. I think it was 16,000 square foot. Mm-hmm. And so we had a place. The Lord made sure that we had a place to bring things. But when we walked into that building, I remember looking around and saying, how are we ever going to use this building? Uh-huh. And I did have somebody come up and offer me quite a bit of money because I'm sure their many businesses were destroyed. Mm-hmm. And I said no, but I could not fathom how we would use all that room. And here we are outgrowing it, and I had to go today to look for another building.
Yeah, I remember that walking in. I guess it was like it hadn't quite closed yet, but we were working on the closing, and then walking in, it was like 2 weeks after the hurricane, and going, "Wow, what are we going to do?"
I know. I mean, okay, we can put a desk over here, it was. And, I didn't think. I have a lot of vision, but not that much.
So the next question is going to go kind of hand in hand. So you already touched on it, but it was in 2004. The company went through a devastating hurricane. It was Hurricane Ivan. Kind of paint a picture of the devastation. You barely touched on that and the circumstances. Where was your eldest son at the time, and how did he come into the picture? Where was your daughter? How did she come into the picture? Where was I when we got the news of the hurricane, and what did I have to do to get down here? And how did we all come together? So just share with everybody. I know this was an interesting story, and I'm the one that lived it. So
that is. There must be lots of families out there that have close families. But in this day and age, you see so many people that aren't close, and their family lives far away from them. They may see them a year, maybe every 5 years. I think at that time, we had that hurricane. If I recall, you were at a trade show.
No, I was actually doing filming for a show that was... that used to be on PBS. It was a PBS production. It was called Quilt Central, and I was co-hosting that show at the time. Okay. So just a little bit insight for you at home. It was actually right in the middle of it, and we knew the storm was getting close at the time.
And it was supposed to be a Category 5.
Yes.
At the time. We couldn't get out.
No, it was in the Gulf, and then as soon as we found out that the direct line Pensacola is right through the middle of it, I personally tried to get on a plane to get home as quickly as I could. All airports had been shut down going from Pensacola and arriving in Pensacola. So I had to rent a minivan, but that's a whole nother funny story in and of itself, and I'll add to it at the very end. But I drove down in a minivan to get home as quickly as I possibly could, and then go ahead and take it from there.
And I believe Valerie was probably at, I don't know, I think she had another job, so I think she was a correctional officer at the time.
Yeah.
So she was trying to get back home, and we had all at that time, 2 grandchildren, or 3, and we decided if we're gonna die, we want to die in the house and not in the car where you can't get out, so we were there. So that was the case we found ourselves, so I don't know if the hurricane had started or you just got in before the hurricane.
I drove all night, just to finish my story, and I'll let you pick up. I actually rented a minivan, and I was the only, when I say the only vehicle, I was the only vehicle going south from Paducah, Kentucky to Pensacola, Florida, starting probably in around the Birmingham area. And then I probably shouldn't tell everybody this, but I'll tell everybody anyways. I got pulled over going 90 miles an hour trying to get home. And then the cop says to me, he was nice as could be. The police officer said to me, as nicely possibly could, he's like, 90 miles an hour in a minivan heading towards a hurricane. I can't wait to hear this one. And then, of course, he found out that I was also a firefighter at the time, which I was a volunteer firefighter. And I'll never forget it. He actually called my police chief, or my chief, not police chief, the firefighting chief right there on the spot when I get pulled over.
To make sure.
To make sure. And not just that, to let him know the circumstances, because we used to run deadly calls all the time, and we saw the devastation. But he let me go with the warning, so he was very kind in that regards. But to finish my story, I headed straight home to help get everything boarded up, literally 16 hours before the hurricane hit. And then you can go on.
Well, there's really not much to say, except Pensacola really was devastated.
Yeah.
And we were one of probably hundreds that had destruction to their house or to their business. So it wasn't unique to us, but it was our business. So of course we were really hurting. Funny thing, if I remember right though, either it was right after the hurricane or during the hurricane, we had a team out at some trade show. And when they heard that we were devastated, so it had to be afterwards, devastated, do you know, and I think it was in Michigan, do you know, over the loudspeaker, they said, will you support Martelli?
That was going to be my next question.
It was unbelievable. Yeah. I'll never forget that. You get really emotional when you see that people come to your aid like that. And that was their way of saying, we're going to help you out. Yeah. So I would like to do the same when people get devastated, if we can do things. And we have done that. We've done a lot of charity work for, police officers, that their families,
the fallen,
and that's the great thing about the quilting community. They're so giving.
Yep. So I'm just going to go ahead and kind of say what the question was, which has actually been answered. Who all came to the aid of Martelli Enterprises and described the generosity that was given to us at the next quilt show? So that was the question that you answered. That was Novi, Michigan. Yeah. What a wonderful, wonderful group of ladies. Oh, and I'll never forget that. At that time, if I remember correctly, we'd had some really good trade shows in the past. Yes. And at that time, we didn't have the number of products that we do now. Right. And at that trade show, I believe we were selling probably 4 to 5 products only. And at that time, we did such a large amount in volume. And I would be willing to bet probably at least half of it was given because the ladies knew of the devastation of the company. Undoubtedly. And at that time, that was something that we needed tremendously. Great group of ladies.
For our people that have gone through tragedy, and we're seeing it more and more and more, which breaks my heart. When you see somebody coming to help you out via food or water or blankets, you're touched right in the heart. And I remember when I saw all these trucks coming down after the hurricane, the power. Yeah. People coming from many states. I think I just teared up,
Yeah, it was tough times.
It was tough times, and people really, really appreciate that time when you give. And you know what? The givers enjoy too. So it's a two-sided street. You appreciate it, but the people that donate from their heart,
they don't understand how
rewarding.
They just really don't understand how much they affect people in that time of need. And and people like ourselves, how grateful we are to be able to get stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it's lacking in the world today, and in this industry, it's not lacking. So we're
It's
grateful
not,
for that.
but that's what we need.
Yes.
A little bit of kindness in this world.
Goes a
With
long
all the
way.
politics and all the stuff that goes around, just a little bit of I love you, I care, and what can I do for you goes a long
Put
way.
the politicking away and
Yeah.
give, just grab someone, give them a hug, and just tell them you love them. And
Yep.
it goes a long way. And it doesn't have to be just family. Someone just going through any tough
Yeah.
time, they all love that stuff like that. So, all right, now that let's move on a little bit from the sentimental aspect of
Good.
it. So, all right, so last couple questions for you. How much do you enjoy working with almost your entire family?
Honestly,
Yes.
I love it. There are trying times, and there are growing times. And thank God that the Lord gives you the grace when you need it, because not everybody thinks alike all the time.
No.
And everybody has different ideas of what's important to them.
Or what works and what doesn't work.
Right. So, and it's turned out in my family where one person said something and we've gone with the other one, and the vice versa. You know, it's turned out that it's worked out really great, because life is a lesson every day. You got to learn to be humble. You have to learn to be able to give. You have to be able to, let go. And you become I think you become a better person and a better family for it.
Yeah.
We've had our trials.
Everybody
To say we have it.
Everybody's had so much ventured interest in this company and wanted to succeed so very badly. When you take something and everything's so personal, and then it comes
It's
down
hard.
to it where your idea might not be the one to go with. It's like, here's a piece of humble pie. Here you go, have a piece. And
The
it's
thing
tough.
about being the mother, see, I wear two hats.
Referee.
You're a mother, excuse me, you have to be a referee. You're a businesswoman, you have to make the right business choice.
Yes.
Otherwise, you won't have a company. So that's two very different hats, and the two difficult ones to do.
Yeah.
So that's the bad thing about a business, but it's the good thing about it too, because when you see it all come together and everybody's loving working together, you think, how blessed am I?
Yeah. A lot of blood, sweat, and tears at the end of the day. I feel so truly blessed being able to accomplish all this. All right, 2 more quick questions, and we'll let you move on. Give me one thing that aggravates you the most about John Martelli.
Oh, you're going to limit it?
I won't let him watch it. He's all over the placeness.
He's a messer. He's a messer, I have to say. I love him to death, so it's hard for me to figure out one thing. But I would have to say, when I go into his office, I want to start cleaning.
Okay. All right, fair enough. Okay, so one of the last 2 questions. So give me one thing that you love most about Dad.
Besides him being very smart.
Yeah, that's a given.
A genius and all. I think that if you met him, you might think, oof, he's rough around the edges. But he has the biggest heart in the whole world.
I would agree. It's the most compassionate
Even his
person.
enemies, if they came and needed help, he would be there.
He's done it.
He's done it over and over and over and over
It's
again.
like, how many times are you going to let the snake bite you before you
exactly,
before
but
you
I
quit petting it?
I wouldn't change him for
Yeah,
the world.
me too. It's what makes him. It was what makes him him.
Yeah.
That's what makes Dad Dad.
Yeah.
So that's fantastic. So last thing I want to ask you, with the kids, you have a daughter-in-law that's active in the company. You have a son that's active in the company. A daughter that's active in the company, multiple grandkids that are active in the company.
Mm-hmm.
How did you figure out, and you just make this kind of quick if you'd like, how did you figure out where to put each piece of the puzzle and make it work? Like in this company, you have someone that does logistics, you have someone that does marketing, you have someone that does the pit bull work, and you have a multitude of things that need to be done in this company. How do you determine who does what?
Well, I want to give the credit to the Lord, because I didn't determine it. I think their abilities determine it.
Yeah, I agree.
And they, God gives different gifts.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know why, but it seems like every area of our business, one of our family or our family members or our friends or it just
Was given the gift for that specific thing.
right, and it just works together so nice.
Yeah.
You know, here we got Zeke videoing us. He's been in the family
For years.
as a friend.
And
He went to high school with our
Stephanie.
oldest granddaughter.
Yeah.
So
what are the odds? What are the coincidences that
that God brought somebody that could do the videoing, that God brought somebody that could do logistics or packaging or CNC operators or laser operators or, I mean, I could go on SolidWorks.
It's so amazing how it seems like one person had a specific gift that we needed. And not only that we needed, it was brought forth at the time we needed it. Like one of the grandkids, we need a logistics coordinator. That's a tough job.
Oh, it is big time.
Well, we didn't get one until the year after graduation.
Yeah.
And there was multiple people put in that position that couldn't keep up or wasn't able to do it. So it just seems like everything that we needed was given to us right at the time that we needed. And that was definitely no coincidence in my opinion.
Well, the thing that I want to wind down with is that it can only be God.
Yeah.
There's
no doubt.
I would like to stand and take credit for it. I would like to take credit for my family being so intelligent and smart and beautiful.
Yeah.
I can't. Just God worked everything out. I make no apologies for being a Christian company.
Yes, I don't either.
And I want to treat everybody with respect. That our customers, we love them. They've been very good to us. I would like to be very good and fair with them too. And so it's just working in this world in harmony if you can.
Yeah.
And I just think we picked the industry that is right for us.
Oh, there's no doubt about that. Absolutely no doubt about it. I wouldn't pick, knowing where we are now and where we started and the industry that we started in. If I could start over, I'd do the same exact thing. I'd change a few little things here and there that we figured out.
Of course.
I wouldn't change the industry for the world or what we've brought to the industry.
Right.
And
you might choose a little different. Some employees that
Yeah.
It just
hindsight's always 20/20 no matter what.
There's always things that come into a business, but all in all, I can say that we have no complaints.
No, not at all. So in closing, if you want to say anything to everybody out there, feel free to let them know.
I would just like to thank you so much for being such loyal and faithful customers. How we see you at the trade shows and just hug on your neck. You've just been a very blessing to our family. And if we can do anything, if you have any ideas or any suggestions, we're always open and ready to hear. If you like this program, we pray that you let us know, and we'd like to be able to interview several different people.
We have several more interviews coming, and just basically let you know about our company, a lot of the people that have been with us from the very beginning and some of the new people that have been with us less than a year, just basically to let you know who Martelli is and what Martelli is all about. So I want to thank you. I know you're my mom, but I want to thank you for being a guest on the show, and in the future we might bring you back on if we want to pick your brain anymore about Martelli Enterprises and what they have to offer. So thank you so much for joining us.
And thank you for the talent God's given you.
Oh, thank you.